In this third module, entitled Communication Strategies, we're going to focus on three main take-home messages. We'll consider moving to a more feelings-based approach to conversation. We'll discuss how knowing a person's history, their likes, their dislikes, can help build better relationships and connections. And we'll look at tips to enhancing your listening skills and some communication do's and don'ts. In Module 2, we considered how a person with dementia may come to rely on their emotional memories as their factual memories become harder to locate. And this is vital to our understanding on how best to communicate. And by making small changes, we can make a big difference to people's lives. Think about a recent conversation that you've had and how the information was passed from one person to another. We often use factually based questions like, how are you today? What was your journey like? Did it take you long to get here? These types of questions require the recipient to recall factual information for the conversation to continue. For a person living with dementia, recalling these facts can be incredibly difficult. And when presented with a barrage of factually based questions, it can be, frankly, overwhelming. Think about how you felt when someone's asked you a question that you should have known the answer to, but couldn't quite put your finger on it. Did you feel frustrated, maybe a bit silly? And then think about how you would feel if someone asked you 3 questions in a row that you just couldn't answer. Switching to a more feelings-based approach to communication may be useful and is certainly worth trying. Look to have a conversation that's positive, but doesn't put a person on the spot. So as an alternative greeting, I might try this. It's lovely to see you. I'm so glad you came. You're looking really well today. Now, these are more observational statements rather than questions, and people will feel welcome and can choose to respond in many ways. And do acknowledge if something is not right. If something looks wrong, you might say, "You're not looking so happy today. That's a real shame." The person may then tell you what is wrong, or simply the acknowledgement that you're interested and you've recognised there is a problem. It might just be enough to lighten their mood. It's not possible to remove all questions from conversation, so when it is necessary, ensure that we're not bombarding a person with too much information all at once. Break information into bite-sized chunks. Would you like a cup of tea? Followed by a pause. Would you prefer a cup of coffee? Would you like a biscuit with that? Make sure the person understands before moving on to the next question. People's dementia, their abilities and personalities vary enormously, and we must look at the people as individuals. When you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. And people should have choice and control in their lives, no matter how small these choices might seem. Going back to something as simple as a cup of tea, you may be supporting someone who loves a cup of tea in the morning, but prefers coffee during the day. And sometimes we assume what a person wants because the question's been too complex for the person to answer. Maybe the choice is made for them. Think about how to incorporate choice into people's lives whenever possible. It's often hard for people with dementia to communicate exactly what they want or how they're feeling. We need to consider how we encourage activities to motivate and not give up on a person. Sometimes someone may simply say no, as no might be the only way they can verbally communicate with you at that point. But no might mean, "I don't understand what you're asking," or "I can't communicate to you in that way right now." And the word no has been used in this instance as a coping strategy because an answer was expected. Again, breaking down into bite-sized chunks might be useful. Maybe using pictures and prompts. Maybe watching an activity first could be enough to motivate someone to take part. To engage with people on a deeper level, it's really important we know something about them. What are they like? What are their interests? What's important to them? I supported a gentleman living with dementia who was living alone after the death of his wife, and his family thought it would be a really good idea to have more social interaction, and they signed him up to an activity group. He was a very reluctant attendee until we found out about his footballing past, playing professionally and later as a manager of a club. We'd found a golden nugget, a piece of information that brought him into the conversation within a group. People wanted to know more about his past. He felt valued by his peers. We all have interests and stories to share, but people may need you to help them share their story with others. So facilitating a conversation in a group can really help people feel part of a community. Knowing these golden nuggets can also help and be useful distraction techniques for diffusing difficult situations or just to help lighten a mood. Never assume that a person does not understand what's being said. They may simply not be able to tell you they understand. And we need to look at other ways of picking up how someone is feeling and what they need. Communication is not just the words that we speak. It's also our tone of voice, our facial expressions, our posture, and the gestures we use. Does this person look cross, sad, in pain? Is the body language closed, relaxed, maybe apprehensive? Does somebody's words and tone match their body language? Identifying non-verbal communication is important to provide the right type of support and ensure people's needs are met. As supporters, being aware of our own body language is just as important. As we've discussed previously, people with dementia can be relying far more on their emotional part of their brain and therefore may be far more sensitive to reading our body language. You might be saying all the right words in conversation, but if your body is closed or your tone is flat, it may give the impression you're really not interested. And if you're not interested, then that's likely to rub off on others. Physical contact could help with communication. A reassuring pat on the arm or the hand may be a useful way of connecting, but you need to ensure there aren't clues to indicate this is unwanted. The final section in this module is looking at how to enhance your communication with some very simple do's and don'ts. Please give them a try. Use eye contact. Look at the person. Encourage them to look at you when you're talking and give the person your full attention. Introduce yourself. Never assume because you've been coming to the same group for 6 months that a person will remember your name. A simple introduction will lighten the tension at the beginning of an activity. Be a good listener. Try not to interrupt. Even if you think you know what a person is saying, just let them finish. And repeat what you've heard back if you're not sure it's accurate. Never assume they can't understand. Just because they may not have the verbal ability to tell you they understand does not mean they don't. And don't patronise or ridicule. Humour can really help to lighten the mood, but the right type of humour. And don't keep correcting people. Just because a person's reality doesn't coincide with our own doesn't mean it's any less relevant or important to them. Be patient. You may have to listen to the same story over and over again. And you can always steer a person to take a different story, into a different direction. It will help the person feel valued and connected. Encourage people to join in. People can surprise you and do things you never would have thought. And watching an activity itself might encourage a person to take part, but they may be just happy just watching, and that can be enough. Be aware of background noise, as distracting noise like TVs, radios can become a barrier, but please ensure it's okay to turn it off or turn it down before you do. Treat people truthfully and honestly. And last but not least, a smile goes a really long way. The next module, Living Better with Dementia, is the last module in the course and will focus on how people with dementia want to be seen and treated. We'll see how we can live better with dementia. please complete the short multiple choice questions to access Module 4 and get access to the additional short film.